Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's live stream. Let's talk about what's so important about Bitcoin today. So, immediately, I'd like to point out the volatility overhead of the previous LOXP, which is still around the 500 period. That is still active. So, compressionary state, still true. So, no, Bitcoin cannot continue trend today. As soon as, let's open up the data window so I can show you exactly what's happening here. Okay. So, do you see how the 500 period is right there in the plot window? Right? If I mouse this over, you'll notice that in the bottom right over here, the numbers will start to turn green from the bottom up, right? And that's the compression. That's a Bollinger Band squeeze, essentially. And so we need the longest overexpanded period to be green, which is technically a state of potential energy, before trend can happen to the downside, if that were to occur at all. So you'll notice that it slowly radiates upward, and we are still here, where we're at the 350 period, being the green one, and no, volatility overhead has not yet evaporated. And you'll notice that we are actually generating a compression period based off that data as well, right? Because this green here defines the compressionary range, which turns into this green band. All right, so this green band defines compression. And it's very hard for price to break out of short-term compression if you have long-term compression happening. And lo and behold, well, that's exactly what we're getting. We're getting longer-term compression and shorter-term compression. And it's pretty good profit ratio long at this time, because if we break down, that'll be a pretty significant break of support. So you can take a small long here. Just be aware that because this is Bitcoin, there are liquidity hunts to the downside. If you would like to wait for a safer entry, you can just use the 50 period CCI. All you need to do is load up a 50 period CCI. If it rolls below the negative 100 value and back up, you want to get that signal. Okay? So if you feel like there might be a volatility pop to the downside, before we actually see this mean reversion condition complete, sure, you can wait for that swing low before attempting entry, and you'll be in a much safer position. Okay? So, what's next, eh? Let it be known that this appears, right, we entered our mean reversion condition here, right? When we entered the 1.25 standard deviation of that LOX 500 period, right? And then the slope of probability volatility is down. So even though price is trending down, it's still technically a bullish mean reversion condition. Typically, if you have a very large data set like this, and your compression happens heavily weighted to one side, while the condition slowly tapers off and restores itself to potential energy, it's a soft bearish signal because you don't have any bullish volume pushing price up to do a trending mean reversion. You're getting lateral mean reversion where the mean travels down to meet price instead of price traveling up to meet the mean. So volume is pretty poor, and that really stems from a sense of people kind of just waiting to see what Bitcoin's going to do. Like if we see trend continuation, there's going to be a lot of selling, for pretty self-explanatory reasons, right? It means the uptrend's over, and also probably take a hit from that as well as money leaves the market. What you can do is, well, just take a small long as I described previously, and if you want to stop out when we do see that further downside, sure, cool, swap it to a short, right? Because we might have enough compression on our higher time frames to actually allow trend in other directions as well. So as far as the 4-hour chart goes, we are still getting that nice volatility overhead reading, and the LOX still is not fully compressed. And what's really nice about these indicators is they tend to work on pretty much any time frame you throw them on, as long as the period look back registers the same moves, you're going to get pretty similar results in your compression range and mean reversion conditions. So, and the reason why this band here is higher is because of this little red period here, which is why I'm using the 2-hour chart, right? Because technically here on the 4-hour, it's reading as 250, right? Let's take a closer look at that. It's reading as 250 based on this period, but the automated indicator is just reading the highest red period, which is all the way up here at 400. So if 4 hours is twice as long as 2 hours, if the 2-hour is 500, what would be half of that? Oh, well, 250, right? So these overexpansion values tend to align neatly as long as the look-back period is consistent, which is really nice. So if we loaded up the 250 period here, it would look exactly the same as the 2-hour chart does. And the compression range is still reading correctly because it's generating based on this overhead rather than just the highest red period. Okay? Hope that was educational. I was requested to look at Sia Coin today. You have a gentle uptrend. I generally don't like to trade. That's a pretty aggressive uptrend, actually, now that you look at, percentage, 70%. Okay, mean reversion is just completely maxing out, so it's not really a good metric. Sure, if you want to use quad CCI, like, take a long now, and just bet on trend continuation, which should be, 15%, you can do that. It's totally viable. Check the YouTube comments. Live stream questions. Can you check Link? I would love to. So Link is performing pretty much exactly as predicted, where we had our mean. Well, let's just take a look at quad CCI. Okay. So last time I looked at Link, we were around here. We had just tagged at 3.2. We had significant overexpansion across the board. We used quad CCI here to catch this brief swing low and turn it for a quick 10%. And we said, A, we're not going to take any more long positions because we are entering toppling short-term mean reversions, which tend to just be short dip, short dip, short dip, short dip, as the shorter periods restore themselves to a state of potential energy, and the longer periods, well, they try to fend themselves off from longer-term mean reversion. So here on the 2-hour chart, we have very high potential energy. That's worth noting. We could, in theory, see trend continuation. I would like to see the pop to the upside, because that's a pretty obvious trend line. If we actually get some kind of comprehensive net expansion, which would show itself around here, that could lend itself to a very strong position. So this is nicely compressed. You have good potential energy. I want to see the expansion as it happens. Let's set an alert for it. All right, we want to see wave PM. We want to see band 1 crossing up. Wave PM, band 3. Okay, should do the trick. Let's check those comments one last time. Nope, that's it. It has been a pleasure. I will talk to you all tomorrow at 1 p.m. MST. You have a beautiful day.